Hi, everyone. Welcome to SBR Sports Picks. I'm Peter Loshak. Today is Wednesday, May 24th. And, of course, we're in the midst of the Triple Crown. We've got the Belmont Stakes coming up in more than 2 weeks. And we're going to get some early opening thoughts from Joel Cunningham from TripleCrownInsider.com, who gave us a great, thorough analysis on the Preakness Stakes. And also, it was, in general, very profitable analysis. You were generally high on cloud computing, as was I, Joel Cunningham. And, of course, we saw what happened. Did the Preakness stakes turn out roughly the way you expected, and did you make any money betting it?
I hit the try in the Super, so I actually did really well.
Wow.
And it's been a good Triple Crown run for me. And you know, I can't say it's like that every year, particularly a race like the Derby, so unpredictable. I was fortunate to get on a horse that could dictate his own trip with Always Dreaming there. Really liked him. Coming back in the Preakness, it's a smaller, more manageable field. I've usually had success there, even though a lot of times the winner doesn't pay a lot. I do feel like a lot of times the best horse wins that race. In this scenario, what you and I discussed last week, I did feel like Always Dreaming was the most likely winner. However, I did think that there was a good possibility that Classic Empire could go after him early, and it could set it up for the fresh horse Cloud Computing, and then Gunnevera is another horse I played on top in tries and supers in that type of scenario, and I used quite a bit of closers in a meltdown scenario like that. So I was able to have a profitable day, and hey, let's keep it rolling now to the Belmont.
Yeah, well, your analysis was very interesting and obviously comprehensive. So right now we're going to talk about your early thoughts on the Belmont, and the Belmont is more than 2 weeks away. Again, this is May 24th. The Belmont goes on June 10th, so we've got a lot of time between now and then to digest possible betting value here. But let's just get your early opening thoughts. I'll ask you a couple of questions that I think are very obvious to anyone just eyeballing this field. Obviously, in the Kentucky Derby, Classic Empire and Always Dreaming were the two top choices, the two favorites that everyone was thinking would be battling it out. Always Dreaming won the Kentucky Derby, of course, and now we're seeing Classic Empire with odds of about 2-1, the favorite to win the Belmont, and Always Dreaming all the way down at 14-1. Now, Always Dreaming, of course, faded badly down the stretch in the Preakness, and Classic Empire just faded a little bit to lose it. But Classic Empire at 2-1, Always Dreaming 14-1 are the odds that I'm seeing. Does those odds make sense to you?
They do, because I don't think Always Dreaming's probably even going to run.
Okay.
So he likely won't even go into the gates. If you're taking 14-1, you could very well be taking dead money there. And Classic Empire deserves to be the favorite in the Belmont, and they've already said that they would like to run. They think there's a classic with his name on it. They feel like he's the best colt of this crop, and they've been playing catch-up all along. Now they go into the Belmont where they're undoubtedly the horse to beat in terms of past performances and class level and where the horse is in his form. No question, he'll be the favorite in there, and that's why you're seeing the price reflection like that.
All right, and now let's talk about Cloud Computing. Finished third at the Wood Memorial, second at the Gotham, and of course won the Preakness Stakes and won it with some closing kicks. So that's kind of promising here for the Belmont Stakes. And I'm seeing futures odds right now at roughly about 8-1 for Cloud Computing. Do you think that's a little bit short, a little bit long, or maybe dead on? Is Cloud Computing once again maybe getting a little bit disrespected here at 8-1, coming off of such a nice win and showing some closing promise?
I think it's fair in the market from the standpoint that he as well may be bypassing the Belmont Stakes. And we saw this in 2010. We had Super Saver run the Derby. Another Todd Pletcher horse did not show up in the Preakness, kind of like Always Dreaming didn't. They bypassed the Belmont. Well, same thing here. Bob Baffert came in, won with the best horse looking at Lucky that year in 2010, but he knew his colt wasn't a 1.5 mile horse, so he elected to bypass the Belmont Stakes, and it left the Derby and Preakness winner out of the field. I think you're going to see that again this year for the first time in 7 years. I mean, I'll have another, I don't suppose he's the same thing. He was the Derby and Preakness winner. Got hurt with an intention to run in the Belmont, but actually bypassing the race, I think there's a good chance you won't see Cloud Computing or Always Dreaming based on comments I'm hearing back in this Belmont field. And the good opportunity in that is you should get a full field of 13 or 14 in here with a wide open possibility and a ton of betting interest.
All right, sounds good. And again, the Belmont is more than 2 weeks away, so it's not exactly clear who is going to be running and who will wind up, getting scratched or pulling out. And now I guess the most important question, of course, the Belmont, 1.5 miles, much longer than either the Preakness or the Derby. So horses that are bred for the distance are key. Horses, that can close are key. And so looking at the current list of contenders who might run here, which of the horses are jumping out to you as horses that might be bred for this distance and might have a particular edge here at the 1.5 miles?
Well, I mentioned I thought you'd probably get a full field of 13 or 14 in here, just because you don't have the Derby and Preakness winner, both are unlikely.
Right.
I think you're going to see people trying to take a shot, even though Classic Empire looks formidable. But at a 1.5 mile distance, look, one thing about the Belmont Stakes, I think history means something in this race in terms of, paying attention to why long shots have had so much success, in recent years in the Belmont. Horses like I can think back at Datara winning at huge odds. Don't think he ever won a race again in his life. Ruler on Ice, and I mean, we've seen these monster long shots come home at the 1.5 mile distance, and I really think it's that distance that's the key. So when I'm looking for contenders and sort of, this field's taking shape. I think it'll be a full field, but we don't know exactly who's committed yet. Early indications for me, I really like the Japanese horse, Epicaris, coming over. A lot of class, good tactical speed, runner-up in the UAE Derby. And more importantly, he's by Gold Allure, who's a son of Sunday Silence. A lot of stamina on both the paternal and female sides of his pedigree. The ability to, when I'm looking at the stamina numbers, I look at the dosage index, the Tomlinson numbers, I look at the horse's style, I look at his class level. This horse is in particular coming in fresh. There's a lot of factors that you look at here. Look, they'll run a 1.5 miles in the Belmont, and these horses will never run a 1.5 miles again in their lives. So over a big racetrack like Belmont, I think you have to really try to find factors in their pedigree that give you an indication they can handle it maybe better than a lot of other horses in the field. And I don't think you'll see any of them thrive at this distance. The way this race is usually won is at the quarter pole, and then you'll see a bunch of grinding to the wire down the stretch. You won't see any dynamic moves or turn of foots down the stretch. So a horse like Epicaris catches my eye. A horse like Take Your Guns catches my eye. He's a horse that'll be, if he runs, he'll be a monster long shot in the race. He's a Chad Brown horse. I believe he was third last time out in the Peter Pan, but he was well beaten. Again, in terms of a horse that is familiar with the track, should get the distance of a 1.5 miles. He's a horse I'm taking a long look at. Chad Brown has another horse by the name of Twisted Tom, who is clearly a second or third string colt in his barn. He's won a few races in a row on a lesser circuit, but he's a horse I think could get a 1.5 mile distance. I think you give him a look. And then IRAP for Doug O'Neill, who broke his maiden in the Grade 1 Bluegrass, ran terribly in the Kentucky Derby over the slop that day. He's coming in as a fresh horse, and again, all the stamina indicators I look for in a horse like IRAP, I think make him a player in here. So I've just given you 3 or 4 names there, of which I think are all going to be solid prices. Epicaris, to me could be, I think he's going to wind up being 3rd or 4th in the wagering, just some people being unfamiliar with the Japanese horse. But those other 3 horses I mentioned are going to be huge prices, and I give them all a long look based on what I'm looking for in a Belmont contender.
All right, so when you're looking at this race and you're looking at pedigrees and past performances and trying to figure out which of these horses might be better than some of the others or better than the market's giving them credit for at handling the distance, obviously it's an educated guess. Are you sort of implying here that it's actually a difficult educated guess to make, and that a lot of it is just kind of a crapshoot because you never really know? There's not a lot of good reliable indicators as to which of these horses is likely to flourish at this distance, or is that not the case?
Well, I think stamina is everything. So you're looking for stamina indicators, right? And the only quantitative indicators that we can really rely on in the industry are something called the dosage index and something called the Tomlinson number, which sort of takes the bloodlines of both the paternal and female side of the pedigree to try to determine, based on, the first 5 generations of their initial pedigree, who is actually bred to thrive and handle a 1.5 mile distance. And you'll find out that I think where you might get more information is there's a lot of these horses that I've been able to throw out in recent years, in my opinion, horses that come in as, favorites that are great at a 1.5 miles, bred to even handle a 1.25 miles, but you go another 1/4 mile on a big racetrack like Belmont, and that spells trouble for a lot of these horses that just don't have the stamina to see out that distance. I mean, there's been a ton of favorites I've been able to eliminate in my wagering over the last 6-7 years with this type of system. And I just think that finding those stamina indicators, whatever you use, whether it's the dosage, the Tomlinson, I like to use a combination of both of them. Who has a Tomlinson over 300? who has a dosage index under 3.0. Those are a couple of things that I really look for. And I think other things that matter are, is it a fresh horse? Is it a horse that's been through the grinder? Let me tell you this about Classic Empire. This will be his 4th race in 8 weeks at his 4th different state, 4th different racetrack. That's a lot of racing for a horse that just ran tremendous effort at Pimlico. To expect him to come back and with that sort of schedule and be on his game going a mile and a half, and you worry about some stamina indicators even with Classic Empire anyway. So a horse that could be what you're showing him at 2-1 in the market right now.
Yeah.
Horse that's going to be a prohibitive favorite in here, I think has some serious question marks. And there are some other horses that aren't on his level in terms of talent, but again, coming in fresh and the stamina indicators in the family to see out that mile and a half. Again, you're not going to see this brilliant performance in the stretch in the Belmont. We just don't see that anymore.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Yeah, American Pharaoh may be the one exception win the Triple Crown, but a lot of times bad horses win this race, slow speed figures win this race. Who's grinding, and it's really an act of attrition the final quarter of a mile down the stretch in terms of who can survive this type of race going a mile and a half. I'm just telling you, it's not about finding the most talented, most brilliant horse like Classic Empire. In my opinion, you'll have a lot more success finding the fresh horse that has the stamina indicators that you can see out the distance the best.
Right, and it sounds like it's a lot about throwing, as opposed to looking for factors that make you like a horse. It's about looking for factors that make you want to throw out sort of a favored horse and then bet against them. All right, great analysis, great breakdown. Joel Cunningham from TripleCrownInsider.com. Of course, we'll be covering this race several more times, I believe, before it goes off on June 10th. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, next time we meet, look, we'll dig into the methodology a little bit and some of the numbers, and as we learn the contenders and this field takes shape, I can definitely tell you horses for me that are going to be throwouts and horses for me that are going to be ones that I'll play.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Joel Cunningham, TripleCrownInsider.com. Talk to you again very soon.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.